Hello everybody. So we are back and we are in Joshua. I want to get back into this and okay. Now I don't remember what we discussed, if we discussed the fact that they were camping in Gilgal after they crossed. And now Joshua, well they did they celebrated the Passover once they stepped land in Canaan. And so when the Passover was finished, it was time for Joshua to go and start cleaning the place out, I guess, and getting the land back to Israel where it belonged. Okay, the kings of Canaan, it says, they heard that the Lord had dried up the waters, and so they all kind of shut the city gates, and nobody was coming in, nobody was going in, nobody was coming out of any of them, especially Jericho. Jericho was the first place to go. So Joshua, this guy here, I'm going to give him his grayness here. And then there's this person, and I will explain him later. It won't be long, believe me. I am going to put Joshua now in blue. Moses is dead. He's no longer wearing the royal blue, and that was way too much. So I'm going to have Joshua wearing blue. This is Jericho, right here, Jericho. Joshua finds this man. He's standing near the gates of Jericho. And I'm using purple to distinguish him. You'll find out why very soon. Okay. This is not a hood, this is hair. Now I'm going to read to you just a little portion of what is happening right now. And it came to pass, when Joshua was by Jericho, that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. Well, I've got the sword kind of pointed down, but it's out of its sheath. He's got a hold of it. Okay. And Joshua went unto him and said unto him, Art thou for us or for our adversaries? And he said, Nay, but as captain of the host of the Lord am I. Now come. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth, and did worship, and said unto him, What saith my Lord unto his servant? And the captain of the Lord's host said unto Joshua, Loose thy shoe from off thy feet, for the place whereon you standest is holy. And Joshua did so. Okay, so who is this man? It says he's a host, or captain of, he's calling himself the captain of the Lord's army, but he's also calling himself a host. And he's got this sword drawn, but he's not using it. And that is important to know, that he is not using that sword. It's more there, I think. I'm But since he does not use it, he's not going to use it, I'm thinking it is a way to distinguish him as a captain of what did that say? Anyway, now, and I am not saying this is absolutely the truth, because I don't know. But most have, everything I've looked up, almost all have agreed this is Jesus. Now, if you're doubting that because he isn't born to earth until the New Testament, I'll tell you this. In John 1:1, Jesus is often referred to as the Word of God. He is the final Word of God. And because in Revelations, he's called the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. Now, that means something different in heaven than it means here, because in heaven there is no beginning or end. But to us it means something, because we live a beginning and an end. Anyway, most people believe that because of the way he commanded Joshua, and he said this is a holy place, this is Jesus. Now, I think it's very well possible, because Jesus is God, the Son. The only way we could look, or still could look on the face of God, is if he takes human form. So that's what happens. And because he was with God in the beginning when things were created, and has always been, he was born in what we call the New Testament. He was born to a virgin and became a sacrifice. And that was so he could people could know who he was. He was witness, doing miracles, and all that. In this instance, I am considering, yes, this probably very much is Jesus, and he is showing his divinity and his royalty, and that Joshua then went down on his face, and he did take off his shoes. He's standing here, and he says, I am not going to fight with them or with you. But he does give him instruction. This here is what I'm calling a thought bubble. This right here. Nice little thought bubble. Okay. Because he tells him that what they are going to do is that he's going to call his men. He wants Joshua to call his men, and they are going to circle Jericho. They're going to walk around Jericho 7 times. Then they're going to be blowing ram's horns. So they will be walking around Jericho. He says, what he says is walk once around Jericho, or the circumference of Jericho, and then to do it 6 times more. So that's a total of 7. And on the seventh occurrence of them circling Jericho, the walls fall. And it does it without a fight, without a whimper, without a boom. Oh, come on. I need some lines here. Okay. Hopefully, I had it drawn out with lines, but those lines disappear when you're painting. So this is Jericho here. And so when you hear this song, or if you were, if you were in Sunday school and or if you ever heard the song, Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, this is the battle that they're speaking of, and it was fought without any swords or arrows or any of that. It was fought with horns, ram's horns. So it wasn't this beautiful trumpet music like, a lot of us kind of think of, but it's ram's horns. Because if you've ever heard a ram's horn or whatever, now I know these gates were probably solid, but I'm going to put them like this so that they're gates. But they can have a little bit of a breathy sound depending on who's blowing them and how they're blowing them, but they can have a very distinct and disturbing, to some people, disturbing sound. And I think they were often used to announce things. I know in the Bible I've come across, just in this study, I've come across twice where ram's horns have been used. Once was during the escape from Egypt. Okay. So Joshua is now being given the instructions on how they are going to fight this battle of Jericho. This is supposed to be, this is just a wall, because it's not the same distance there. Okay. So Joshua will be going back to his people, and he will be bringing his men. He'll be bringing his army armed only with ram's horns. Now, they have been raising sheep through this whole thing, and goats. And a ram's horn, you think of a sheep that's got these really long horns, and the ram is a very, the ram is often referred to throughout the Bible, but because a lot of times they sacrifice a ram without blemish and that kind of stuff. So, but here's our ram's horn. But ram's horns, they tend to look kind of ribbed because they grow out in segments. Now, I don't know I know deer and stuff, they shed their antlers every year. People for a long time used to say that they added more to their antlers every year. No. No, they shed their antlers and get bigger ones. So, kind of like snakes when they're growing, they'll shed their skin. I guess it's similar with crustaceans like shrimp and stuff. I'm not real sure, but that's just an aside. So I'm going to put a little bit of grassy area here in the middle of Jericho, so you can see that is the ground, and there would have been people milling around. But remember, Rahab, she lived right over here on this side, where she was able to let them out on this hill, and they were able to, the spies that he sent in. So next time, we'll be marching around this thing with ram's horns. I really do feel this is very possibly Jesus, because in John 1:1, it says, in the beginning was the Word was God, the Word was with God. And Jesus is referred to as the Word. So it's very possible, and I believe it probably is, Jesus who is standing there giving it, because especially since he had him take off his shoes, just like God did at the burning bush with Moses. He had him take off his shoes, and Joshua evidently recognized this was a holy man, that this was divine, and so he fell on his face, and then they talked. And the messenger, Jesus, or this Lord, or this captain in the army of heaven, which in this case is very likely Jesus. Okay. Not only will they be bringing ram's horns, but the priests will be carrying the Ark of the Covenant out in front of that. My memory card filled up, so it quit. Good night. Love you. Smile and wave, and there's yours. Good night.